Harold Benson sat in a small one-bedroom apartment in Chiang Mai, Thailand, staring at the faded photograph of himself and Prafaporn taken at Doi Suthep Temple 7 months earlier. He was 67 years old, living on his monthly pension of $2,300, surviving in a city that had once promised him love, purpose, and meaning, but had instead delivered the most devastating betrayal of his life. 8 months ago, he had $500,000 in combined retirement savings and investment accounts, money he had carefully accumulated over 40 years, working as an insurance adjuster in Detroit, money he had protected through market crashes and recessions, money he had planned to live on for the remaining years of his life. Now he had nothing. $370,000 was gone, transferred systematically over 6 months to bank accounts that turned out to be fake, for property that was never legally purchased, for a school that was never built, for a dream that was nothing more than an elaborate fiction designed to separate him from his life savings. And Prafaporn herself, the woman he had called Namfa, the 34-year-old part-time teacher who had captured his heart with her spirituality and grace, was gone as well, vanished completely, every phone number disconnected, every email address bouncing back, every trace of her existence carefully erased. Her name was Prafaporn Klinbut, though she had told Harold to call her Namfa, which she said meant raindrop in Thai. They met at a temple festival in Chiang Mai in February of 2023, and Harold had been immediately struck by how different she seemed from the women he had read about in expat forums, the bar girls, the gold diggers, the obvious scammers. Namfa was modest, respectful, deeply spiritual. She wore traditional Thai clothing, volunteered at temples, and spoke with reverence about Buddhist teachings and family values. She was not looking for a foreigner to rescue her from poverty or provide a luxurious lifestyle. She simply wanted to do good in the world, she said, and she believed Harry could help her achieve that dream. The dream was a school, a small private school for poor children in rural Chiang Mai province, where kids from impoverished families could receive a quality education, nutritious meals, and a chance at a better future. Namfa said she had been saving money for years to make this dream a reality, but she needed a partner, someone who shared her values, someone who believed in making a difference, someone who could help provide the financial foundation to turn vision into reality. Harry believed her. He believed every word. He believed in the school, in the mission, in Namfa's sincerity and goodness. He believed that after 40 years of processing insurance claims and managing paperwork, he had finally found a way to make his life meaningful. He believed that Namfa loved him not for his money but for his character, his kindness, his willingness to help her change children's lives. Over 6 months, Harry transferred $370,000 to bank accounts that Namfa said were for land purchases, construction costs, educational supplies, and legal fees. Namfa showed him documents, introduced him to people she said were lawyers and contractors, took him to visit the land where the school would be built. Everything seemed legitimate, professional, carefully planned. And then one morning in August of 2023, Harry received a text message from Namfa that read, "I am sorry. There were problems I could not fix. Please forgive me." When he tried to call her, every number was disconnected. When he went to the land where the school was supposed to be built, he discovered it belonged to someone else entirely. When he went to the bank, he learned that the accounts where he had deposited the money had been closed and emptied. When he went to the police, they told him the identification documents Namfa had provided were fake, that the people she had introduced him to as lawyers and contractors did not exist, that he had been the victim of a sophisticated long-term fraud. This is the story of how Harold Benson moved to Thailand looking for love and purpose, and instead lost everything to a woman who understood that the most effective way to scam someone is not to appeal to their greed or their lust, but to their deepest desire to do good in the world. This is the story of how hope can be more dangerous than any other emotion, and how the most devastating scams are the ones that make you believe you are changing the world while they are destroying your life. Harold Benson was born in Detroit, Michigan, in 1956, the youngest of 4 children in a middle-class family. His father worked as a shop foreman at a General Motors plant, his mother was a homemaker, and they lived in a modest house in the suburb of Dearborn. Harold was a quiet, studious child who excelled in school and was known for his meticulous attention to detail and his ability to see patterns and inconsistencies that others missed. After graduating from Wayne State University with a degree in business administration in 1978, Harold was hired by a mid-sized insurance company as a claims adjuster. It was steady, reliable work, reviewing accident reports, assessing damage, determining liability, processing claims. Harold was very good at his job. He had a natural ability to analyze complex situations, identify fraudulent claims, and make fair assessments. Over the years, he was promoted several times and eventually became a senior adjuster, managing a team of junior adjusters and handling the most complex cases. Harold married a woman named Susan when he was 31. She was an elementary school teacher, and they met through mutual friends at a church social. The marriage was stable, but not particularly passionate. They had no children. Susan had fertility issues, and after several unsuccessful attempts to conceive, they decided to focus on their careers instead. The marriage lasted 28 years before it quietly fell apart. Susan told Harold she felt like they had become roommates rather than partners, that there was no connection left, that she wanted to try being on her own while she still had years ahead of her. The divorce was finalized when Harold was 59. It was amicable and relatively inexpensive. They split their assets, sold the house they had shared, and went their separate ways. Harold moved into a small apartment in Royal Oak, continued working, and tried to adjust to living alone, but he found the loneliness suffocating. He had no children, few friends, and no hobbies that brought him joy. He would come home from work, heat up a frozen meal, watch television, and go to bed, feeling invisible and irrelevant. Harold worked until he was 65, then took early retirement. His pension would provide him with $2,300 per month for the rest of his life, and he had saved aggressively throughout his career. Between his retirement accounts, investment portfolio, and the proceeds from selling his share of the marital home, Harold had approximately $500,000 in liquid assets. It was more than enough to retire comfortably, especially if he was careful with his spending. But Harold was profoundly lonely. He tried dating in Detroit, but the women his age seemed uninterested or were dealing with their own complicated lives, adult children, aging parents, health problems. Harold felt like he was fading into irrelevance, like his life had already ended even though he was still alive. That was when he started researching retirement destinations abroad. He had never traveled much, a few trips to Canada, one vacation to Florida, but he had always been intrigued by Asia. He watched YouTube videos about retiring in Thailand, read blogs about American expats living in Chiang Mai and Bangkok, and joined Facebook groups for retirees in Southeast Asia. Thailand seemed perfect, low cost of living, warm weather, friendly people, and a culture that valued elders rather than discarding them. In January of 2023, Harold made his decision. He would move to Thailand for a year as a trial, see if he liked it, and potentially make it his permanent home. He liquidated some investments, transferred money into accessible accounts, and booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok. He was 67 years old, and for the first time in years, he felt a spark of excitement about his future. Harold arrived in Bangkok in late January and spent a few days in the overwhelming chaos of the city before taking a bus north to Chiang Mai. He had chosen Chiang Mai because it seemed quieter and more manageable than Bangkok or Pattaya, with a large expat community and a reputation for cultural richness and spiritual depth. He rented a small apartment near the old city for 10,000 baht per month, about $290, and began exploring. Chiang Mai was beautiful. Ancient temples appeared around every corner, mountains surrounded the city, and there was a peaceful, meditative quality to life that Harold found deeply appealing. He joined an expat meditation group, started attending Buddhist talks at local temples, and began trying to understand Thai culture in a way that went beyond tourism. It was at one of these temple events, a festival celebrating Makabucha Day, that Harold met Prafaporn. The festival at Wat Phra Singh was crowded with locals and a handful of foreigners. Harold stood near the back of the temple courtyard, watching monks lead a candlelight procession around the main temple building. He was mesmerized by the beauty and solemnity of the ceremony, hundreds of people walking slowly in a circle, holding candles and flowers, chanting prayers in rhythmic unison. A Thai woman standing near him turned and smiled. "First time at Makabucha?" she asked in clear, softly accented English. Harold nodded. Yes, it is beautiful. I have never seen anything like it. It is a very special day in Buddhism, the woman said. We honor the Buddha's teaching and his disciples. Very important for Thai people. They talked for a few minutes as the procession continued. The woman introduced herself as Prafaporn, though she said everyone called her Namfa. She was in her mid-30s, dressed in traditional Thai clothing, a long silk skirt and a modest blouse with her hair pulled back simply. She had a gentle, serene demeanor and spoke with genuine warmth rather than flirtation. Namfa explained that she volunteered at several temples in Chiang Mai, teaching English to children and helping organize community events. She said she worked part-time as a caregiver for her elderly grandmother and that she spent most of her free time engaged in volunteer work. She asked Harold about his life, and he told her about his career in insurance, his recent retirement, his decision to move to Thailand to find peace and purpose. That is very admirable, Namfa said. Many Farang come to Thailand only to party or find young girlfriend, but you come to learn about culture, about Buddhism. This is good heart. Harold felt seen and appreciated in a way he had not felt in years. They exchanged contact information, and Namfa suggested they meet for coffee to continue their conversation about Buddhism and Thai culture. Harold eagerly agreed. Over the next few weeks, Harold and Namfa met regularly. They would have coffee at small cafes in the old city, visit temples together, and talk about philosophy, spirituality, and life. Namfa never asked Harry for money, never suggested expensive restaurants or shopping trips. She seemed content with simple, meaningful interactions. She introduced Harry to other volunteers at the temples, included him in community events, and made him feel like he was becoming part of something larger than himself. Harold found himself falling for Namfa, not in a passionate, romantic way, but in a deeper, more profound way. She made him feel purposeful, valued, like his life could still matter. She spoke often about her dream of opening a small school for impoverished children, about how education could break the cycle of poverty, about how she wanted to dedicate her life to making a difference. I saved money for many years, Namfa told Harold one afternoon as they sat in the courtyard of Wat Chetty Luang. But it is not enough. Land is expensive. Building is expensive. I need maybe 10 million baht to make school real, but I will save. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, I can do it. 10 million baht was about $290,000. Harold had that much and more. The idea began forming in his mind. What if he could help Namfa build the school? What if his retirement savings could be used not just to sustain his own life, but to change the lives of dozens, maybe hundreds of children? Call to action. If you're watching this and thinking, Harold should have been more skeptical, understand that Namfa didn't appeal to greed or lust. She appealed to his desire to do good in the world. That's what makes this scam so devastating and so effective. Subscribe to this channel and share this video to help protect others from manipulators who weaponize hope and charity. Harold's story is about to spiral into complete financial destruction, and you need to see how easily good intentions can be exploited. After about 2 months of friendship, Harry broached the subject carefully. They were having lunch at a small vegetarian restaurant near Tha Pei Gate when he said, Namfa, I have been thinking about your school project. What if I could help? What if we could make it happen sooner rather than later? Namfa looked at him with surprise and curiosity. What do you mean? I have savings, Harold said. I worked for 40 years, and I saved carefully. I have enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But I have been thinking, what is the point of dying with money in the bank? What if I could use some of that money to help you build the school? What if we could do something meaningful together? Namfa's eyes filled with tears. Harry, that is very kind, but I cannot accept such thing. This is too much. You need money for your own life. I have more than enough for myself, Harold said. And honestly, Namfa, I have been looking for purpose. I have been looking for a way to make my life matter. This school helping you build it, this could be that purpose. Namfa reached across the table and took Harry's hand. You have such good heart, Harry. This is why Buddha bring us together. Not for romance, not for money, but for dharma, for doing good work in the world. They spent the next several weeks discussing the school project in detail. Namfa showed Harry sketches of what the school could look like. A simple 2-story building with 4 classrooms, a small library, a kitchen for preparing meals, and a playground. She said the school would serve children from nearby villages whose families could not afford private education and whose local government schools were overcrowded and underfunded. Namfa said she had identified a plot of land in a rural area about 30 kilometers outside Chiang Mai. The land was one rai, about 1,600 square meters, and the owner was asking for 2 million baht, about $58,000. Namfa said if they could secure the land, they could begin construction within a few months. Harold asked to see the land. Namfa arranged for them to visit on a Saturday morning. They drove in Namfa's friend's pickup truck through increasingly rural roads until they arrived at a plot of empty land, surrounded by rice fields and small villages. Namfa walked Harry around the property, pointing out where the school building would go, where the playground would be, where they could plant gardens for teaching children about agriculture. It seemed perfect, peaceful, accessible to nearby villages, affordable. Harold felt a surge of excitement and purpose. This was real. This was happening. He was going to help build a school. How much would the total project cost? Harold asked. Namfa pulled out a notebook where she had written down detailed estimates. Land is 2 million baht. Construction maybe 6 million baht. Furniture, supplies, another 1 million. Legal fees, permits, another 1 million. Total maybe 10 million baht. Maybe little more. 10 million baht was about $290,000. Harold had that much easily. He could invest in the school and still have more than enough left to live comfortably. I want to do this, Harold said. I want to help you build this school. Namfa hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. You are blessing, Harry. You are angel sent by Buddha. The process began in April of 2023. Namfa explained that because Harold was a foreigner, he could not own land in Thailand. The property would need to be registered in her name, but she would create a legal document acknowledging Harry's financial contribution and giving him rights to the property through their partnership. Harold was hesitant. He had read enough expat forums to know that putting property in a Thai girlfriend's name was risky, but Namfa was not his girlfriend. She was his partner in a charitable mission. And she had never asked him for anything for herself. Everything was for the school, for the children, for doing good in the world. Namfa introduced Harry to a man she said was a lawyer, a well-dressed Thai man in his 40s named Somchai, who spoke decent English and carried official-looking documents. Somchai explained the legal structure of the property purchase, the limitations on foreign ownership, and the protections Harry would have through contractual agreements. Everything will be documented, Somchai assured Harry. You will have legal proof of your investment. If anything happens, you are protected. Harry signed documents that Somchai provided, all in Thai with English summaries that seemed to match what Somchai was explaining. Harry transferred $58,000 to a bank account that Somchai said was the escrow account for the land purchase. Namfa showed Harry the receipt, the land deed with her name on it, and assurances that everything was proceeding properly. Over the next few months, there were more expenses. Construction materials needed to be purchased up front. The contractor required deposits. Permits and licenses had fees. Each time, Namfa would show Harry invoices, receipts, and documentation. And each time, Harry would transfer money, $30,000 here, $40,000 there, $50,000 for a bulk construction material purchase. Namfa took Harry to meet the contractor, a Thai man named Prasit, who showed them architectural plans, construction timelines, and material samples. Prasit explained the building process, the timeline for completion, and the costs involved. Everything seemed legitimate and professional. By July of 2023, Harry had transferred a total of $370,000. It was more than he had initially planned to invest, but Namfa explained that costs in Thailand were unpredictable, that there were always unexpected expenses, that they wanted to build the school properly rather than cutting corners. Harry trusted her. He believed in the mission, and Namfa continued to be the same modest, spiritual person she had always been. She never asked for money for herself, never suggested expensive trips or gifts, never acted like anything other than a devoted partner in their shared mission to help children. In early August, Namfa told Harry that construction was scheduled to begin the following Monday. She said the contractor had all the materials, the permits were finalized, and the groundbreaking ceremony would take place at the land site. She invited Harry to attend, saying it would be a moment they would remember forever, the beginning of something beautiful that would outlive both of them. Harry was overjoyed. After 6 months of planning, transfers, and paperwork, the school was finally becoming real. He could barely sleep the night before the ceremony, lying awake in his apartment, imagining the school filled with children, hearing their laughter, seeing their faces light up as they learned to read and write. But on Monday morning, Harry received a text message from Namfa. "I am sorry. There were problems I could not fix. Please forgive me." Harry stared at the message, confused. What problems? What did she mean? He tried calling Namfa immediately. The phone number was disconnected. He tried her other number, also disconnected. He sent messages online, on Facebook, on every platform where they had communicated. None of the messages delivered. Harry drove to Namfa's apartment, the place where she said she lived with her grandmother. The apartment was empty. The landlord said no one by that name had ever lived there. Harry drove to the land where the school was supposed to be built. When he arrived, there was a Thai family having a picnic on the property. Harry approached them and asked, through broken English and hand gestures, if they knew about the school that was supposed to be built there. They looked at him confused and said the land belonged to their family, that no one had purchased it, that no school was being built. Harry felt the world tilt. He drove back to Chiang Mai and went directly to the bank where he had been transferring money. He asked to see the accounts where his funds had been deposited. The bank officer checked and said those accounts had been closed 3 days earlier, all funds withdrawn and transferred to accounts in Bangkok and then overseas. Harry went to the police station. He brought all his documentation, the signed contracts, the receipts, the bank transfer records, the photos of Namfa. The police reviewed everything and told Harry what he already knew in his heart but could not accept. He had been scammed. The lawyer Somchai did not exist. His credentials were fake. The contractor Prasit did not exist. The land had never been purchased. The school had never been real. Everything, the entire 6-month relationship, the temple visits, the philosophical conversations, the shared mission, had been an elaborate fiction designed to separate Harry from his life savings. The police investigation lasted 3 weeks. They traced the bank accounts to dead ends, fake identification documents, accounts opened with stolen IDs, money transferred through multiple intermediaries before being moved offshore. The people Harry had met, Somchai, Prasit, even some of the temple volunteers were either accomplices or actors hired to play roles in the elaborate deception. Namfa's real identity was unclear. The name Prafaporn Klinbut was likely fake. The police said they had seen similar scams before organized groups that targeted older foreign men with significant savings, using spiritual and charitable appeals rather than romantic or sexual manipulation. This is a very sophisticated operation, the investigating officer told Harry through a translator. These people are professionals. They study you, understand what you want, what you believe in, and they create an entire story designed specifically for you. They know you want to do good in the world, so they give you chance to do good. And while you think you are helping children, they are stealing everything you have. The officer said the money was unrecoverable. It had been moved through too many accounts, across too many jurisdictions. Even if they could identify the perpetrators, which was unlikely given the fake IDs and careful planning prosecuting them would be nearly impossible. Harry was devastated. $370,000 more than 70% of his life savings was gone. He still had his pension and about $130,000 in accounts that he had not yet transferred. It was enough to survive, but it was not enough to live the comfortable retirement he had imagined. Harry tried to call his ex-wife Susan to tell her what had happened. She listened to his story and then said, with a mixture of sympathy and frustration, "Harold, how could you give away that much money to someone you barely knew? How could you not see this was a scam?" "I thought I was doing something good," Harry said quietly. "I thought I was helping children." "You were being naive," Susan said. "You were so desperate to find meaning that you ignored every warning sign. I feel bad for you, Harry, I really do. But this is your mess to deal with." Harry had no children to call, no close friends or family who could help. He was alone, broke, and stranded in a foreign country where he had thought he would find purpose, but had instead found only devastation. Harry is now 67 years old, living in a small studio apartment in a less expensive part of Chiang Mai. His rent is 7,000 baht per month, about $200, and he lives frugally on his pension. He eats cheap street food, avoids social activities that cost money, and spends most of his time alone in his apartment or walking through the city. He has joined a support group for expats who have been scammed in Thailand. The group meets weekly at a small cafe, and Harry has heard dozens of stories similar to his own men who lost everything to bar girls, to fake property deals, to business scams, to romance fraud. But Harry's story is different in one crucial way. He did not lose his money to romance or greed. He lost it to hope. He lost it to the belief that he could make a difference, that his life could have meaning, that he could help children and change the world. Over the months since Namfa disappeared, Harry has learned more about how these charity scams work. They target men like him, older, financially stable, lonely, and searching for purpose. The scammers understand that appealing to someone's desire to do good is far more effective than appealing to their greed or lust. Namfa had never asked for anything for herself. She had never suggested expensive dinners, jewelry, or trips. Everything was for the children, for the school, for the mission. That made it impossible for Harry to see it as a scam. How could helping children be a scam? How could building a school be fraudulent? But that was exactly the brilliance of it. By wrapping the fraud in moral righteousness, Namfa had made it nearly impossible for Harry to question what was happening. To doubt her would have meant doubting the mission itself, doubting his own desire to do good. And Harry had been so desperate to believe his life could still matter that he had ignored every practical warning sign. Harry sits in his small apartment now, looking at the photograph of himself and Namfa at Doi Suthep Temple. In the photo, they are both smiling, standing in front of the Golden Chetty, surrounded by the beauty and spirituality of one of Thailand's most sacred places. Harry remembers that day vividly. He had felt peace, purpose, connection. He had believed he was building something beautiful, but it was all a lie. The woman in the photo was not real. The mission was not real. The school was never going to exist. Everything had been carefully constructed to exploit Harry's deepest desire to matter, to contribute, to leave something meaningful behind. Harry now tries to warn other expats about charity scams. He posts in Facebook groups, attends expat meetups, and shares his story with anyone who will listen. But he knows most people will dismiss his warning. They will think they are smarter, more careful, that their situation is different. Harry thought the same thing. He had worked in insurance for 40 years. He had spent his career identifying fraud and deception, and yet he had been completely fooled by someone who understood that the most effective way to scam someone is not to appeal to their worst instincts, but to their best ones. Harold Benson is 67 years old, and he lost $370,000, more than 70% of his life savings, to a woman who convinced him he was building a school for impoverished children. The school never existed. The land was never purchased. The contractor was never real. Everything was an elaborate fiction designed to separate him from his money while making him believe he was changing the world. Harry sits in his small apartment now, surviving on his pension, and he thinks about the choices he made. He thinks about the moment he first met Namfa at the temple festival, the moment he offered to help fund the school, the moment he signed documents he did not fully understand. He thinks about how desperate he was to find purpose, to feel like his life mattered, to believe that his final years could be meaningful rather than empty. He did not lose his money to greed. He did not lose it to lust or stupidity or carelessness. He lost it to hope, and that is the cruelest loss of all. Harold moved to Thailand for love, not romantic love, but love of humanity, love of purpose, love of meaning, and it ended in complete financial ruin. This is his life now. This is his future, and every morning when he wakes up in his small apartment, he is reminded of exactly how much it cost to believe that doing good in the world was possible, and that someone would help him do it. Harold's story is a devastating reminder that the most sophisticated scammers don't appeal to greed or lust. They appeal to our desire to do good, to make a difference, to leave a legacy. These charity scams are particularly cruel because they exploit the best parts of who we are. If this documentary has opened your eyes to how hope itself can be weaponized, please subscribe and share this video widely. Stay vigilant, verify every charitable claim independently, and remember, real charitable work is transparent, documented, and never requires you to transfer your life savings to a stranger's bank account based on trust alone. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe.